Hello everyone. This morning I went to visit a local hobby store, one of the very few still left. So today I will walk you through various tools you can use and when to use them. And I'll illustrate it with several parts of our D7. So let's get started. First off, a visor, and that's a real must-have. And this one just wears like regular glasses, way more comfortable than those headbands. Now, a visor is your best friend because it will be of great help to locate the positions of the various supports. But it does more than that because up close you start to appreciate the engineering, the precision and the crispness of all those little details. And that's what really stuck with me ever since I started working with these parts. It's that quiet wow factor. Here's my take on that with a simple illustration. With injection molding, removal goes quick, but then you're left with a decent amount of cleanup. Now for me, removal is the fun part because it's all about discovery, like unboxing. You examine the parts, you take them off the sprues, you feel them in your hands. And it's also quite clean and satisfying a job. Now cleanup, I don't know about you, but I find that pretty messy. All that sanding gets very dusty and frankly after a while outright boring. Take dispenser 3. I started during COVID. I mean, those 12 double wheels, I think it took me probably about a week to get them right. Now the first one, that's wow, nice, but then after 5, it's more like I'm out, time to do something else. Now with 3D, it's in fact the opposite. You spend most of your time on removal with only a little cleanup. Of course, assuming the engineering is properly done, because then what seems tedious at first becomes in fact easy and enjoyable. And more so as most of these parts kind of sit behind a curtain, quietly saying, come and get me. As you gradually unfold them, that sense of discovery just lasts a bit longer. Now, if this smells like I'm making the case for 3D, well, I will let you decide. Now for the second one, I'm afraid I cannot show that to you because it would not fit into the screen, so you'll have to imagine it. But what you absolutely don't need is a chainsaw. We're dealing here with intricate and precision engineered parts. Also the smaller versions, which sit on the more subtler side of the spectrum, absolute no-go, totally unnecessary. But instead I have something better. It's probably one of the best tools on the planet, and the good thing is it's completely free. You may have guessed it, it's what you're born with. In particular your thumb or your index, and even more precisely your nails. And of course the longer they are, the more precise you can work. Now it's something where Kostas and myself are in disagreement. Kostas, he always uses tools, even a Hawkeye instead of a visor. But that's of course because he needs to be able to inspect everything up close to see if it's up to spec. So let's just take Kostas' position as the official one. But then, you know, I mean, rules are always going to be broken, whether I share you this or not. So let me just explain you why I've learned to appreciate the use of my nails. And that's because a tool is always an extension of you, even if it's very well designed for handling. There's always this hint of a lag, some translation. It's a proxy. Whereas your nails, it's different. It's you, it's a part of you, and it gives you that unmatched level of precision and control. It's almost like you can feel it. So I'm going to show you some examples, and then you just discover on your own how far you want to take it. Now for a start, because in the parts list, there are some with what I would call 0 to low risk, which are good candidates for discovery or experimentation. So let me show you this. You just clip it off. Now another candidate are these wingtips. Now in this case, and I'm not going to show it to you because we will do that later. For the wingtips, you would want to wait until after the bonding process, because in this case, the supports help you to line up the two parts better together. It gives you a better grip. And then once you've bonded it, you just clip them off in a similar way as what I showed you with the seat cushion. Now a last example, and now we're here going into more delicate stuff or loose gravel. Even for like these supports here, when you use your nail to just gently dab it until all the top supports are being released and a particular column or pillar is freed up, then you see, you just release it. Done deal. Now what we just showed you, we're not going to disclaim that using too many a page, too small of a print, more cover your ass type of nonsense you never read, or even worse, don't drink it. Well, yeah, probably a good idea, I guess. No, instead, as we said earlier, we're confident you'll just find it out on your own. Also because that's something typical for modelers, very resourceful and creative in dealing with stuff. Here what you see in front of you is our favorite tool set, the tweezers, ranging from the super precise ones to the more rougher varieties. Now the precise ones are ideal for delicate, thin, hard to reach supports, whereas the rougher ones are better suited for the heavy lifting and larger breakaways. Now why are these our favorites? Well, as we'll demonstrate, that's because tweezers, along with the forbidden fingernail, they are the type of tools that help you snap off supports exactly where they're engineered to break. So right at the cross section where the support ends and the part begins. And let me show you that with the single cockpit cell. So here we have our single cockpit cell. I have two tweezers, a fine one and a rougher one. And what I'll do is remove one of those pillars with the supports. Now, I'll try to do that in a bit awkward way, but you start by gently, similar to what I showed you with the finger. So you make sure that the top supports are loose. So here they're loose. And then with the thicker one, you can remove the column. So you see, it's quite easy and effortless. Now this may all look easy and cool, but there's a little caveat, and that is that it all depends on the engineering. Because resin, just as any other material, now some are stiff, some are flexible, some even have a bit of a memory. It's just a material, so not very intelligent, let alone artificially intelligent. In fact, it's quite dumb because it has trouble distinguishing the boundary where a support ends and where the part begins. So I probably don't have to tell you that the thicker the support, the more likely it is to fail at recognizing that boundary, at the risk of snapping at the wrong place. So let me just illustrate that with some other work. So here the supports are thicker. Now I didn't do that on purpose because on my first try I must not have been careful enough, but then unintentionally it shows you what could happen. The point I wanted to make is that when supports are thicker, tweezers are likely going to become way less effective. And even if you manage to remove them, whether carefully or forcefully, you're going to end up in a result like this. And I'm not sure if it's clear, but you see these break-off points here. So you need to fill them up and sand them. So that's why probably in this case you want to play it on the safe side and clip them off a bit further, but then you're back into sanding again. And it sounds familiar also with plastic injection molding. Probably you'll have come this across where if you clip it off too close, you got this deformation type thing. So here too, you want to play it on the safe side and then you're back into cleanup Valhalla. Obviously, the worst case is that it would break off at the wrong place, at the part itself, which brings me to another topic, that of resin being brittle or too brittle. So here is plastic, here is resin. Here I tried to break off some kind of a fender, and here I massacred one of our test elevators. Now, let's call a spade or call it brittle or too brittle. Resin just snaps, and way sooner than plastic, because here it took quite a while before it eventually broke off. Now resin, when it snaps, it tends to snap quite clean and crisp, whereas plastic tends to deform before that happens, and then it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, to restore that to its original form. Whereas here I'm pretty confident that we could do that. which is why I'm showing you this one here, because there's a bit of a story. After SMC, one of those ended up at the bottom of my passenger seat, and somebody must have stepped on it. Probably me, of course. Anyway, it kind of cracked through all the way and even through the grills. So normally I would guess you would throw that into the bin. But then as part of a resin UV experiment, Costas tried to fix it. And he fixed it quite quick and dirty. I even have a video of that, which if I have a chance, I will upload it on the Gothaforce forum. So if he would have done it properly from the back instead of him doing it at the front, I'm pretty sure you would barely have seen it. So is plastic better than resin or vice versa? I would say let's leave that in the middle. I would say it's just different because every material has different properties. Or as a late Dutch soccer legend, famous for his bone dry statement, used to say, every disadvantage comes with an advantage. All I know and what I've learned is that with our tweezers, you can come a very long way in preparing our D7 clean and comfortably. Next up are the knives. So here's a complete set with the usual suspects, so different handles and different blades. Now on the blades I quite like a soft grip, but that's a matter of personal taste. And on the blades, the obvious candidate is of course our classic number 11 here. But I'm going to try out some others if they could be useful along the way, which is the reason why I bought this complete set. Everything comes with its pros and cons, and so does the knife. Whereas a tweezer generally leads to a break where you want it to break, so at that cross section where the support ends and the part starts, that's a bit less likely with the knife, because you need to be a bit more cautious. Because on the one hand, there's this risk of cutting into the part, and then if you play too much on the safe side, there's more cleanup to do. But you'll definitely need a knife, because that's why I use this instrument panel here. As you can see, the support structures are way too dense, so the tweezer can simply not do the job to reach in between. So that's why when you use the knife, either using a classic cutting motion, or you could even replicate the behavior of the tweezer by just gently pushing and dabbing it forward until the support comes loose. So maybe in the end it just all comes down to personal preference. Last but not least, with your classic number 11, you won't make it to the ends because there are certain parts where it simply cannot do good enough of a job. And the fuselage is one of them, where at the earlier stages of the removal, you want to free up the forward fuselage sections, and you do that from the top. And maybe this one illustrates it better, because here you can see that the classic 11 simply doesn't have enough vertical reach. Which is why I bought that set, because there may be others which can do the job, either like 11's bigger brother, or like a chisel, because the chisel has an advantage of, again, having more of a dabbing motion instead of a cutting motion, probably reducing the risk of cutting into the fuselage section. But then if not, there's always a plan B, because these ones definitely have enough reach. So that covers pretty much our section on knives. On to the nippers. Here you'll see a very precise one, and here a clunky one. They can be useful. Now, I don't see an immediate clear-cut use case for the D7, but in the engine rewind video, you'll see me using it to clip off some cylinder arms. So a use case could be some isolated supports which can be easily reached with a nipper, and then well, you might as well do a clean cut rather than start wiggling with a tweezer or a knife. Now in the previous sections you saw that these carry our preference because nippers are more prone to create tension, and tension risks stressing or even breaking the part. So if you want to use them, try to go for the precise ones, because they tend to have more of a cutting motion rather than a crushing motion, and crushing is even worse for tension. Now this clunky one you'll need at some stage when you work on the single cockpit cell, where you work from the front to the back. And at some point, the base plate will start sitting in the way. So you want to have that removed to have the freedom to continue working in a comfortable fashion. And then you use this clunky one to nip off the base plate. And I spoke about tension earlier. This is also the reason why we've engineered these large cutouts, so that removing the base plate is just a matter of clipping here this very short section, and that helps greatly reduce the risk of stress or even breakage, because obviously that would be a sad end to a beautiful piece. This pretty much rounds up our walkthrough. Now, if you already have everything you need, well, you're good to go. And if not, we hope this helps a bit to find the right stuff. And for those of you who have suggestions on other useful tools, feel free to comment or share it on our forum, the Gothaforce, so that we can all help each other. Maybe just one last point, and obviously that's a matter of personal taste, but I tend to opt for the best tools. They may cost a bit more, but then it's an investment, and usually they last a bit longer. And they come with an unexpected benefit, and that is root cause analysis. Because if you mess things up, then you immediately know it's the person and not the tool that needs a little overhaul. Okay, thank you for watching, and looking forward to see you again.